Is it safe?
Yes, it's safe. It's very safe. It's so safe you wouldn't believe it.
Is it safe?
No, it's not safe. It's very dangerous. Be careful.
Hey folks, it's the Blind Guy here coming back at you with another good old movie recommendation. And of course, if we're asking the question, is it safe? We are referring to the movie Marathon Man from 1976, starring Dustin Hoffman, Laurence Olivier, and Roy Scheider. This one's a pretty solid movie, I have to say. It focuses on a very gritty and grimy New York City. Nothing ever really changes there. And Dustin Hoffman is a grad student who loves running marathons. He's a distance runner. And his father was into foreign policy, who's deceased. And Dustin Hoffman's brother, played by Roy Scheider, has some sort of secretive agent job that he doesn't know about. And that's the backdrop of the story. There's a man who's of German descent living in New York City who's killed in an automobile accident, and that man possesses diamonds from the Holocaust. And his brother, who is in charge of a lot of the torturing in the Holocaust, is coming to town. He's played by Laurence Olivier, to get those diamonds. And for some reason, they think Dustin Hoffman is involved in this and knows a lot more than he does, which is actually nothing. And so he gets chased around New York City by these Nazis as they're trying to get these diamonds. He has no idea what they're talking about. He's caught and tortured. That's the famous torture scene with Is It Safe, where they're doing the dental torture on him by the White Angel of Death, which of course is Laurence Olivier's character. And this movie is really pretty solid, I have to say. It comes out in a kind of gritty period in Hollywood. In my opinion, there's two of those periods. There's one in the 1940s, which kind of has a bit of a lull in it around World War II, because people were tired of that and wanted to escape from that for a bit. But a lot of the movies in the 1940s have this kind of film noir grit to them. And then it comes back again from about 1972, which movies like French Connection, even Deliverance that we reviewed the other day, until about 1982. I think Blade Runner is one of the last ones to do that very gritty style. And this one is right in the middle of that, and it has definitely got that feel to it. Big city, just a lot of like slums and people on the streets and things while he's out running. And it just has a very neat feel to it in that regard. I'm not sure how that works, that a very gritty movie like that can actually be pretty cool, but it is. And so the movie's paced really well. You guys know I like that. It has a lot of suspense and tension, and then some scenes of action. And I was curious because I have a background in distance running. I thought, I wonder if this is going to be fairly accurate, because it does show him training a lot for his marathons. And it really is. You would believe that he and Roy Scheider both look like they could run a marathon in this movie. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's got a couple things to it that I don't love. Mainly the ending. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a part in the ending where Laurence Olivier's character heads into a part of New York City that's very heavily Jewish in population. And some of them start recognizing him for who he is. And it looks like the movie's going to end there. And I think it should have. When I was watching, I was going, wow, this is going to be really great if this is how the movie ends. But then it feels like they just tacked on an ending of about another 10 to 15 minutes where it's almost like they just wanted Dustin Hoffman's character to be involved in the ending. And I think it would have been more unique and more of a surprise if he was not involved in the ending of this movie. So that's one of my little gripes of it. And it gets a little bit ahead of its skis a little bit at times, but not too bad. There's a little, in my opinion, a little bit too, almost one too many double crosses in this movie. I think you can outdo yourself on that pretty quickly. But I'm not gonna hate on this movie. I think it is definitely worth seeing. It scores a 7.4 on IMDb. I think that's pretty accurate. Maybe 7.5, even 7.6. The acting is exceptional in this movie. One of the famous stories is that because Dustin Hoffman was part of the whole method acting movement where they would just pretend to actually, not just pretend, but absorb the character that they were acting as. So Marlon Brando was big into this, Robert De Niro. It came out a lot in the movies like On the Waterfront, Streetcar Named Desire. That whole movement was really started then. And so there's this whole school of guys who were mainly schooled in New York City who got into this. Elian Kazan actually really popularized this movement as well. And so Dustin Hoffman was part of that, where you actually Daniel Day-Lewis is a big proponent of this, Philip Seymour Hoffman, where you are the character for the duration of the shooting. You were just that character. They have you call you by name and all that. Well, Hoffman was into that, and so he was depriving himself of sleep for several of the scenes where he had to be deprived of sleep in. And eventually, I guess Laurence Olivier just said, well, good old boy, why don't you just try acting? And so Hoffman now says that isn't exactly how it went down, but it does certainly sound like something Laurence Olivier might say, who in my opinion was actually a better actor. But everybody's good in this movie. Everybody's solid. Roy Scheider is pretty awesome, I think, in this movie, and the year after Jaws. And it's just very solid in that regard. And like I said, the story's good. It's a little complicated at times. It's paced well. Dustin Hoffman's character arc is very good in this movie. I enjoyed that. He goes from being very naive to learning how to protect himself very quickly, but in a very believable manner. You really start pulling for him just to make it through this thing. It does have several very, very, I wouldn't necessarily say violent because they're not gory, but they're uncomfortable torture scenes in it, which so that X's it out of the list for my mom to ever watch because she hates torture scenes. Hi, Mom. But she'll watch Deliverance, but she will not do movies like this. But I think they're necessary there for you to appreciate the outcome of the movie, much like Deliverance, where some of the more uncomfortable scenes are just they're there to make you appreciate things more later. A little bit of trivia: this was the first movie ever to use the Steadicam. Rocky also came out at the same time, around the same time, but this one came out a little bit before, and they both use Steadicam shots, and so you see that all the time in movies now. But that was a big deal when you're dealing with these film cameras, to be able to move them around and follow actors in shots like they do in this movie where he's running and things like that. So this was the first to do that. And so those are my thoughts on 1976's Marathon Man. I would say if you like suspense and those kinds of movies, there's a scene in this where Dustin Hoffman is actually in the bathtub and he knows that these men are coming to get him at some point. That scene is so well done, and that is a masterclass in tension and suspense and dread. And I absolutely loved that scene. So it's just worth watching just for that one scene. But definitely check it out. The link to it is in the description. And thank you guys so much for all your support and your comments. I've got a couple of comments that wanted some other movies checked out. I will check them out. I'm in the process of publishing several books right now. So you'll see those come out. And that's why the videos haven't been quite as frequent. But I will pick them up here soon, especially when I want to show you guys what I've done with those books. So thank you again for everything you guys do, and I'll see you on the next episode of A Blind Guy's View. Laters on the Minjay.
Laters on